Hello, my name's Randall Davidson. I'm speaking to you from River Falls, Wisconsin, where we are conducting Composers Institute's Junior Composers Institute. The day is the 12th of July, 2022. And I am in a media room with 2, 4, 6 composers, and then I've got a number of other composers online. Today we are going to bend our brains out of shape just a little bit. We're going to be studying the music of the great American composer George Crumb. And I have sent all of the participants in Composers Institute an email that contains a PDF of the first movement of a book that is called The River of Life. I'm going to show it to you. This is I'm going to be sharing a video today, but this is the score. And you'll notice that when I unfold this, it is very large. I have scores that are about this big. But I got to meet George a number of times. One of the times was at his home in Media, Pennsylvania. And he had a basement studio, which made me feel very much at home because that's where my studio is. And he had along the wall score paper that was much wider than this screen, much taller than this screen. And I can tell by my hands going this way. And he had easels, musical easels, sitting on the wall, and it covered all 3 sides of the basement room that he was working in. He had a grand piano in the middle of the room, and he was. If you'll notice on your score, if you have a chance to open your scores, it may be helpful. I'm not going to display the scores on the screen. I'm going to be displaying the performance and my Google Drive presentation, which I also have shared with you. And the scores are handwritten by George Crumb. Now, the publisher of this score is C.F. Peters. And they do this beautiful job in this score. But if you go inside and start looking at the manuscript itself, this is all hand calligraphy, handwritten score. And you would never guess that he'd done this. It is a work, every piece of music that he's ever written is a work of art. He is the composer who sort of revolutionized the idea of calligraphy by writing scores that were spirals on almost like a conch shell. Sometimes the things are floating on the page, and they're huge pages. We're going to learn a little bit about, I'm going to be focusing on George Crumb on both of my sessions today. First of all, we're going to be listening and looking at the opening measures of this piece and how he uses harmonies and how he creates harmonies with many different parts and all in the piano as well. So he does one thing in the piano and then all of the other instruments. And you'll see in just a short while that there are many instruments playing. So let's get started with the Google Drive presentation. Now, if everything is copacetic, we'll be able to see I believe, let's just hope that this works perfectly. Everything's great, no problems. Well, that's not the score that I was looking for. This is the score, actually. You'll see, and I'm going to go zoom in a little bit to give you an idea of, these are all hand-drawn notations. First of all, you'll notice one very interesting metronomic marking. Right there at the top of a screen is mysterious resonance. Its quarter note is circa or about 40. Now, if anyone was here at one of my sessions yesterday, we were talking about pulse, beat, rhythm, and meter. We're going to be talking about that today, but this music is at solemnly with a profoundly mysterious resonance, quarter note equals 40, which is very slow. Very slow. And I'm going to be looking now for my other screen that has the presentation on it. Hold on just a second. Oh, there you go. There we go. Here we go. What would X do when X equals George Crumb? What would George Crumb do? And we're going to find out. One of his last works before he passed away was a magnum opus, 7 books of Americans from the American Song Bag. This is the first movement of book 1. I've got a number of his scores up here at the end of the WWXD. I would like you all to come and take a look at it in real, in a concrete form, not just the virtual form. The theme today, as you'll remember, we're going through 4 stages during our WWXDs. Monday, we were working on generating music ideas, all kind of how to make musical memorable, music memorable, and rhythms, and how to write them, and how to use the pulse of a piece of music, generate ideas. Today, this is Tuesday. You've been learning a lot about how to capture their ideas in notation, and on digital workstations as well. So we're going to be focusing on capturing. Tomorrow, you'll never guess what the topic is. Polish. This is not Polish. This is polish we're going to be working on. And then we'll be producing starting on Thursday and Friday. We'll get ready for Saturday's show. OST, I always start with OST. It's the definition of music and organizing sound in time. And what we're trying to do for all of the composers at the Institute is trying to conceive of music by organizing time and trusting what your heart is telling you and the pulse, trusting your ears, what your ears is telling you, and learning to trust your ears as being really as accurate as your ears are. Don't let your brain be the one that's deciding what the right notes are. Use your ears and then make them, the ears the dictator, not the follower. Now on this this sheet here, this looks like George Crumb is a different color. It's because this particular presentation is been shared to each of your emails. You can click on this and it takes you to the original or the official George Crumb website. So you can read all about George Crumb and all of the music that he's written. And today this first session, we're going to be talking about harmonic motion and notation, and specifically the River of Life, which is this first volume of the American Songbook. And the first movement is Shall We Gather at the River? I would like to make sure that you have headphones if you're in the room and get them on. This is a very low volume piece, very slow, a very soft recording. And I want to make sure that you can hear what's going on. It's hard for us to understand the visceral effect of his music when it's so soft and there's hiss going on and there's fans blowing and we're comfortable, but we can't hear as well. And I'm turned up the volume as much as I can. I've sent PDF scores out. I would love you to look along as we're going through them. And I've got the sound settings just fine. And please mute your microphones if you're in the room. We're going to have a chance to talk in just a little bit. So let's move on to the next topic. I've been talking quite a bit about how rhythm and melody and harmony are one thing. They're not separate things, that you can work on your melody and then you can work on your rhythm and then you can work on your harmony. They are one thing. It's a common practice. Going back, you can't have a melody without rhythm. You can't have a harmony without rhythm. You can't have, there's harmonic rhythm. We'll be talking about that today. Each element contains a multitude of things. There's a way many terms you have to learn about rhythm, lots of things to learn about the melody. And today we're going to look at some of the things, but only one instance. I'm going to focus today only on George Crumb. And we're going to try to focus on that in just a second. Listen to that in just a second. The 7 American songbooks are listed here. This book that I've got here in my hands is The River of Life. You can see the dates that he wrote this. And George died just about a year ago. So his music is famous for Black Angels, string quartet for amplified string quartet, The Voice of the Whale or Vox Balanai. He wrote Ancient Voices of Children, which received the Pulitzer Prize. He is a significant figure in American music. And I would liken him to Bela Bartok, his importance. Bartok was very important to Central European culture at his time. There were international composers named like Stravinsky, who was considered to be greater, or Britten, who wrote for opera and voice very effectively. Bartok was focused on the art or the music of his culture. And this American songbook is probably his last work that he wrote at the end of his career. There are many movements in each of these songbooks, and they are based on American folk songs. So like Bela Bartok, who was very interested in folk music, George was also very interested in American folk music, even though he wrote these sort of spacey pieces, have great titles. You think, oh, he was an experimentalist. But at the root of what he was doing, and I think these songbooks are evidence of it, he was very rooted in his West Virginia roots and understanding folk songs and the importance of that tradition. The River of Life, Book 1. Here are the titles see if you know any of these titles. Could you raise your hand online or in the room? Shall We Gather at the River? Anybody know that title? Maybe you'll get to know it today. Will there be any stars in my crown? I never heard of it before, but it's a folk song. Amazing Grace? Yes. Give Me That Old Time Religion. It's sort of a barn stomper where you could beat your feet. Time is a Drilling River, a psalm for daybreak and morning. And that is an instrumental interlude that he wrote that was really just on its own. Were you there when they crucified my Lord? One More River to Cross, which is a humoresque, Nearer to My God to Thee, and Deep River. Yes, you know that piece? Yeah. So these are all songs really having root in church music that became widely accepted and practiced. These are 9 movements in this first book. There are 7 books. There are over 100 songs, each one a different song with a different approach. You'll notice the titles of the 7 songbooks: River of Life, Journey Beyond Time, Under the Hills, The Winds of Destiny, Voices from a Forgotten World, From the Morning of the Earth, and From the Heartland. And the dates go from 2002 to 2010. And what was interesting about him, I have a friend who's writing a book right now, composer friend and student, writing a book called 32 by 32. And she's writing a book about 32 composers at the age of 32 in their careers, which is a fascinating story, saying, like, among the other people she's looking at is Bach was in jail by the time he was 32 years old. And the success people have, and the success before they're known for something they've written, like Sam Barber had written the Adagio for Strings, but he was, this actually had not written the Adagio for Strings, but he was becoming well known. So finding that idea of what happens at a certain time in a composer's life, I've been looking at these songs by George Crumb and thinking of myself in his shoes. He went back to his roots, and he was finding inspiration in the music from when he was a young person. And he knew all of these songs by heart. By heart is part of the feeling that he had, nostalgia, but quite a different take on these songs. These 9 songs here listed here. Here's a lyric of the "Shall We Gather at the River, where brighter angel feet have tread, with its crystal tide forever flowing by the throne of God." Very Christian, unashamedly Christian. And here's just some of the performance notes. Now, this is the beginning of the capture topic that we talked about today. He is very specific about everything. All performers are read from the score. So everybody is performing from this. This is the part for everybody. This is not the score, this is the part, and it is the score. The big piece of paper, and it's actually 4 pages long. So you have to have long arms to turn the page. It is recommended that a conductor, and that misspelled word is conductor, be used for this work since the ensemble is exceptionally large and the percussion instruments fill the stage. And if you receive the PDF of the percussion instruments that were listed, it's an enormous orchestra of percussion. And so the entire stage, you'll see here in a second on the video, this entire stage is filled with percussion. Piano is in the center, and along with a singer. All metronomic indications are approximate and may vary. The solo singer should be amplified. One of the things that George did was use amplification for string quartet, for piano, for Ancient Voices, Black Angels, Vox Poloni, these are amplified cello. So all of the idea of amplification at the time that he was born, in the early 20th century, that was not something that you would ever amplify for classical music. He made that a feature of his classical music. And he would often talk about the idea that amplification almost made your voice the voice of God when you were singing, or the voice of God when it was the piano. It was louder than, and it had a bigger presence than it would if it was just an acoustic instrument. So he really did use that metaphor and use that technology. The piano should be amplified by means of a single conventional microphone, not just with 1 inch or so above the bass strings, not just get a microphone on the piano. It should be in the bass strings, and it should be 1 inch from the bass strings. He's very specific, and I would recommend that capturing your idea is not just, yeah, I want to have some a maraca. Well, what kind of, how big is the maraca? How large? And you'll see on your PDF on the instruments, it's very specific what kind of percussion instruments he's looking for. Amplification should be set rather high to balance the rest of the percussion ensembles. And if you ever heard percussion in a concert stage, oftentimes too loud compared to the other instruments. So he wanted that amped up. And here, and also he's very specific about the extended piano techniques. And we'll see this in the second session today. The next page is, the longest citation is number 6. The pianist should devote special attention to the proper execution of all extended techniques used in this work. Strings should be marked in some fashion because she's playing on the inside of the piano. So if you're plucking one string or not, you have it marked on the inside so you're not missing and playing the wrong note.
Do you know how they would mark it? Would it be with chalk?
He would use chalk, and he would use these little stickers about this, little round stickers about this big, and he would put them on the string, and he wrap them, sort of semi-wrap them on the string. This is also when you would have to find where the harmonic was on a string. Now, if you've not done harmonics on the inside of a piano, have you done that already, guys? There are nodes, N-O-D-E-S, that are on the string, and they are halfway up the string, a fourth of the way up the string, a third up the string, a fifth up the string, sixth up the string, a seventh, eighth, and you can push down on the string as you can measure it and then literally know where the note is. If it's 24 inches, 12 inches is a node. And if you play that string, it will sound an octave higher. And if you push to the next node, it'll be a fifth higher and a fourth higher, et cetera, et cetera. So it's a very specific, precise nodal points for harmonics should be marked on the string. chalk is one way to do that. Thank you for asking that question. But also little stickers. For easier execution of groups of harmonics or muted tones, the pianist has a length of wood. And it's not just any length of wood. It's 6 to 8 inches long, a ½ inch thick, with a felt or rubber on one side of the equipment, with a handle in order to exert more pressure on the strings when you're hitting the harmonics. So you don't have to have an assistant pressing the note on these long strings. You have a board that you stick out and you push down on the string in the right place. So he's incredibly precise. There's no goofiness about it. Why is this going off, guys? You know? There we go. We're back on. Then he talks about the pedals, which I think are oftentimes we just sort of let that up to the performer. Note that pedal 1 indicates the damper pedal, not just any old pedal. It's the damper pedal. And number 2, pedal 2, indicates the sostenuto pedal, not used in this work. Don't touch the middle pedal. And pedal 3 is the una corda pedal, which is the whole keyboard moves over 1. And so when the hammer comes down on the string, it's only hitting una corda, one string. And using that third pedal is left to the performer. Also, the abbreviation FT, fingertip. So he indicates you only want a fingertip on the string, or fingernail, FN, on the string. When you swing up the string, you can hear that. Or TN, thumbnail, which is even louder and more resistance. So George Crumb is incredibly precise in what he requires, especially because he works inside the piano, which is considered not something that pianists normally do. And they never learn how to do this correctly. They're not taught how to do this. And it's sort of left to you to just just play on the inside of the piano. Not George. He was very specific. It will be necessary to amplify the toy piano. I have a toy piano. I forgot to bring it this week. I'm going to have my wife bring a toy piano. Yes, Kevin. A toy piano is, here, I'll give you an idea of how big it is. If this is the width, you can see me on Zoom. That is the width of the keyboard. It is that wide and about that tall. It's a little bit larger than the screen on the Zoom. And it has a very high, sort of out of tune bells. It's called a piano, but it's really more like a celeste. You're striking little bars. Yes, Iggy.
Do they make professional toy pianos?
I have a professional toy piano. I'll be bringing it later this week.
Oh, really? That's
Yeah.
so.
So we can see what a toy piano is like. Yeah. Say it again. Could you put your microphone on? We can't hear you. Yeah.
Does George Crumb have specifications on exactly how the toy piano should be?
Well, let's look at it. Says right here, it's necessary to amplify. the toy
Right, but
piano.
like the way it's built or something?
Oh, no, he
It
doesn't.
says on the.
There are specifications for how to build a professional toy piano.
Oh,
So it's like getting a piano. You don't say, I want a piano that's 93 inches wide. And this, you just get a standard piano. That's exactly the same thing for toy pianos. Yeah.
He has a range on here for the piano.
So he does. And this is on the PDF that I send around?
Yeah.
Iggy, thank you. Yes, do you want another question, Kevin? Okay. Although this songbook and these songbooks, I should say, are conceived as a unified piece. So you're going to go through all 100 pieces, all of these 100 songs, and they're between 3 and 10 minutes long. This is 100 songs. He conceived of this as a unified work, sort of like the Well-Tempered Clavier by Bach, or any multi-movement piece that would go on for a long time. The composer is not averse, and this is what his words, the composer is not averse at all, averse to the idea of excerpting individual songs or even to mixing songs from different songbooks. I think mostly he would just like to have performances. Let's go on to the next page. Here's the program note that he provides in the score. It was one of Charles, this melody was once one of Charles Ives' favorite melodies growing up. Now, if you were with me yesterday, we played The Unanswered Question by Charles Ives. And he is a major influence in George Crumb's music. And so it's not ironic that on book 1, song 1, he chose one of Charles Ives' favorite songs. And it is indeed evocative, something quintessentially germane to the American psyche, meaning from that idea, much of our idea of what America is grew from that seed. Begins with a quasi-subliminal music, which is entitled River Music. And we're going to be talking about river music specifically here in a minute. This lazily moving continuum of bass register piano sonorities and water bent bell timbres underlies the entire song. It is the river flowing. And he creates that right away at the beginning of the piece. When the voice timidly emerges, his words, with its constantly drifting tonality and interrupted phrases, something surreal and disembodied is projected like a song. What's the rest of that thing? I can't see it. Oh, over here. Like a song in search of itself. There we go. Okay. Let's listen to Shall We Gather at the River? The music has started. Low volume. You can follow along on the score. We're going to look at the score here in just a short while, but this is just the audio. The bell that she is using 2 mallets to hit on either side of the bell is called a klaxon. And she is dipping it in water. And as it dips in water, it changes its pitch. I know. it's somewhat ironic that we are here in River Falls along the Kinnickinnic River. And you'll notice today at 4 o'clock when we do the Zoom session for our object pieces that are by, inspired by the prompt from Kim Sherman. You'll notice that many of the pieces have music as the basis of the idea, their object. So we're going to be listening to other depictions of music, but the river music is something that I'd like to talk to now quickly as we look into, there we go, into George Crumb. I would like somebody to sort of call out what are the chords, what's the left hand intervals, first chord in the left hand of the piano. You recognize that? Yes, Kevin. Yeah, and fourths, what's the lowest note? A. A, D, and G. And what about the right hand? What would you call, do they fit into any of the notes below in the left hand? It's also in the bass clef. You'll just notice that it's all lower in the lower part of the piano. It's a B, C sharp, and F sharp. Well, if you were to put the B up an octave, let's just say take that low B and put it up an octave, it would be a C sharp to an F sharp to B, also fourths, stacked fourths. And the lowest note here is A, D, G, and then if you were to put C sharp, F sharp, and B, those are two, they're crunchy. They aren't really pretty major chords or minor chords. It's sort of quartal. It's called quartal when you've got all of the notes are fourths apart from each other. And you'll notice that there's a parallel quality of all of those of all of those chords. They're moving parallel up and then back down. And what is the tempo for this? Here, I'll move it over just a smidge. There it is. It's a quarter note equals 40. So we saw something like this. And what's the dynamic for this? Do you see that written in the, Caleb, do you see what the dynamic is? Pianist, could you do your, you can now put your microphones on, I think, because we're just talking with each other. What is the
Pianissimo.
3 Ps?
Yeah.
Is that hard to play? You're a pianist. Is that hard to do in that register?
Yeah, but it's also slow enough. So
Say it again.
it's slow enough to be possible.
Right.
If it were much faster, it would be too difficult. But since it's so slow, you can kind of, move vertically along the keys, and it makes it not too difficult to play that softly.
And so now today, I want to just remind you, we're capturing ideas on paper. So this is a concept that he had for this. This is called the river music. But you notice the pedal action. Iggy, what do you say about the pedals for this piece?
Well,
Could you, yeah, you're good. Go ahead.
he said that he only used the sustain pedal.
And he's putting the pedal on, isn't he? What's it say? What does the notation say on the score?
For the pedal,
Yeah.
yeah, it says always has always has the pedal
Sempre,
on.
always pedal. So pianissimo, 3 Ps, sort of quartal, and it's sort of muddy down there. Always pedaled. And what's interesting is if you'll see it as the piece goes along in this first staff, we have one very long measure. There's measure 1. Here's measure 2, also very long. And then measure 3 is right here. Always the same chords, and they're moving in parallel motion. And then this is measure 4. And then what happens after 4 measures? We repeat this over and over and over again. This is called river music. And you'll notice at the same time that we supposed to go now?
Yeah. It's 2:30, my son's birthday.
We are gonna pick up on this at my next WWXD. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you. No, I appreciate giving me the heads up. There you go. Boom. Boom. Boom.